Welcome to Business is Good, the podcast all about what it means to be in business in the 21st century. Small and medium-sized businesses are the lifeblood of the UK economy, and globally they can and will have a huge impact on society, the economy and how we live our lives. From technology disruption to reworking a solution to solve the world's biggest problem, Business is Good is a podcast about what it takes to be successful and how every business defines that in different ways. Business is no longer just about being defined by what you do, but it's about giving back and redefining the problems and how we solve them in a way that works for you. I'm your host, Caroline Sumners, and I'll be giving you weekly inspirational stories from business owners who are building business and solving problems. Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Business is Good podcast. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be interviewing a very good friend, Joy Zarine. Joy is a hospitality and guest experience expert and also author of the 5-Star Formula book, which I think came out a couple of years ago. I've known Joy a number of years, full disclosure. You might be able to tell with our conversation. But today we are talking about, about hospitality businesses. We're obviously in the middle of, when we recorded this in early May, we are still in lockdown. We're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. And obviously hospitality businesses have been fairly hard hit. Business is Good podcast is all about building a good business. Now, that can be from the point of view of giving back and purpose within your business, but also building a good business for you and for your customers. So we really explore that subject in depth today. So hopefully you will enjoy listening to this episode as much as I enjoyed chatting to Joy. So over to Joy and this edition of Business is Good. Thanks. Joy Zarine, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Delighted to welcome the wonderful Joy Zarine to today's Business is Good podcast. I have known Joy, 4 years? 5 years? I don't know. 5 years. We got to know each other through, we were actually paired as accountability partners, weren't we?
Yes.
A program we did with a guy called Todd Herman, which is all about mindset and productivity and goal setting and things like that, which was actually really good. But anyway, I managed to be paired with Joy Zarine, and we've become friends since. So when I was finishing off the recording of the podcast, and if you've listened to previous episodes, you'll know that I started recording them back in January, and it's now May. So we are well and truly into lockdown of COVID-19, although looking about the streets where I live, you wouldn't think we were in lockdown.
No. Us Brits are breaking all the rules. Because I'm by the beach, there's all sorts of people around. So anyway, So I'm welcoming Joy to the podcast today. So Joy, tell us what you do, and just give us a bit of introduction as to what you do for everybody. Oh, okay. Thank you so much for a lovely introduction. That's brilliant to be here. So my name is Joy Zarine. I am a hospitality and business strategist. I work with bars, restaurants, pubs, hotels, and other small businesses as well, helping to improve everything from their business systems, their sales processes, and their service and guest experience as well. I've worked with hospitality businesses for about 18 years now. The majority of my career has been working with everything from small independent restaurants to UK-wide brands to launching huge companies, and also working with the world's most popular venue, the O2 as well.
Wow, yes, of course. I forgot you were doing the O2 stuff as well. So tell us, how did you get into what you're doing now? I know there's an evolution of how you got to there, how you got to here, but what kind of give us a high level of how you got to being the superstar for the hospitality business.
Well, it all started when I was kind of 18. I finished my A-levels and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was very academic at school. I was a straight A student, and, my parents, I'm from an Asian background. So like most Asian families, they wanted me to go either into medicine or law. They were the options. And I decided that I didn't want to do either. I had done work experience in both fields and everyone seemed very unhappy. Everyone seemed very miserable. And with a name like Joy, I wanted my future to be full of happiness. So I decided to go in a different direction. I thought I was taking a gap year. I ended up taking a gap life. I never went back to university, despite the fact I am very academic. And I found myself working as a waitress in a cocktail bar, just like the song. And I just fell in love with it. I worked with fun people. I worked with interesting people. I loved the music. I loved the atmosphere. I loved making guests happy. I loved meeting interesting people every single day of my life. And at the end of every shift, I couldn't believe I would walk home with, pockets full of cash. And I would feel like I'd had the best night out. But it was my job, and I just absolutely loved it. And I was looking at, my friends were struggling students and, eating cold baked beans. And I felt like I was earning fantastic money. I was, dining out at the best restaurants in London and, hanging out with great people every day. And I just absolutely loved it. So I kind of accidentally fell into hospitality and just found an industry that every day is different. Every character is unusual, and every owner has their own story. And it's just all progressed from there. I did go into corporate for a couple of years because everyone told me I was too smart to be waiting on tables. And I did it for a couple of years and it only made me miserable. So I knew exactly where my heart was, and I decided to go back to hospitality. And since then, I've done management, I've co-owned restaurants and bars, and I've always kind of really strived to learn more. So I've always been into very much self-development. So learning marketing, learning, better business systems, finding out what places need and, how to make them function better. And I've just always been really passionate about it. And, I've had the chance to work with some amazing people. I wrote a book that came out, I think nearly 3 years ago now, which was a real game changer for me, which basically gave me the chance to put my ideas out into the world. And since then, even more opportunities have come up. So I describe myself as guest experience obsessed. I wear that like a badge of honor. I'm absolutely desperate for businesses of all types to really put the guest at the center of everything that they do, because when you do that, your business wins. People are very quick to cut corners, cut labor, cut portion sizes, scrimp and save, and then they find themselves in this vicious cycle of having to do 2-for-1 offers and bounce back vouchers and Groupon and all these different things. Whereas if they had just made their guests the center and the focus at the very beginning and not cut the labor and not cut the corners and not, cut all the expenses, they wouldn't be going down the let's do bottomless brunch or let's do, all of these kind of cost-cutting exercises. And it's just a vicious cycle where the struggle gets worse and worse and worse. So the clients that I work with, I'm all about breaking that struggle. I'm about, right, let's train the team to be better. Let's build systems within the business to make the business better. Let's not make profit in a lottery. Let's make it an absolute foregone conclusion that the business is going to be profitable. Let's build it out. I really focus on building products and services for the guest rather than finding guests for our products and services. And it's a real flip switch that I don't understand why more people don't get. When I sit down and go, okay, let's stop trying to find guests for what we do. Let's figure out what we do for our guests. And when I say that to people, they're like, we've never thought of it that way. And I'm like, when you think of it that way, when you find, extra events or better products or upsells or whatever it might be to serve your guests better, you don't have to keep chasing them. They come back and they come back again and again, and they bring their friends and they tell their family, and and it turns that cycle around. It really makes everything a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I love the whole approach that you have, and I think it, as you know, I'm obsessed by humanizing brands and humanizing businesses that otherwise, I work with mainly B2B businesses, and often they feel like they've got to be talking in this certain way or approaching their customers in a certain way. And I think that I always talk to clients and people about humanizing their brand and making sure that they're having conversations with them and approaching it as a customer, seeing it from the customer's point of view. And I think it seems obvious in hospitality that would happen. But when you think about it in your own experiences, when you go into some restaurants and bars, it's not, is it? Yeah. It's like, you can't have that because this is the way it is. So I think that's such an important point. And obviously, hospitality businesses are struggling right now. I mean, we're recording this on May the 9th, and we're all eagerly awaiting an announcement tomorrow by the Prime Minister that I don't think is going to remotely affect anything to do with hospitality businesses, or indeed many businesses. And so they are struggling and they are looking to find different things. So is there anything that you're talking particularly to your clients about right now, about how they can continue to thrive as hospitality businesses that can't open, offering the service they normally do, but still get through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we are mid-pandemic at the moment. And as you say, restaurants and bars and hotels are all kind of closed at the moment, which has obviously been a huge struggle. But the reality is that hospitality have been struggling for years. The business situation that so many people have been in it's been tough, and people have been drowning slowly. It's just now the rest of the world has joined us in that swimming pool. Yeah. So I've been dealing with very difficult circumstances with very many businesses in hospitality for a long time. So I kind of think part of what makes us great is that we've got quite a thick skin to it now. The pressures that we've got are different, but we've always had incredible pressures. The number one thing I guess that I've been dealing with a lot is figuring it out. So going, okay, so we can't have guests sitting in the restaurant. How can we still serve them with what we do? How can we still sell a product? And that might be a delivery system, that might be a takeaway system, that might be cold food, so that ready meals that guests can heat up at home. They can have their favorite dinner, and it comes chilled and they heat it up at home. Yeah. Or turning the restaurant into a cookery school where people can subscribe to finding out how to make cocktails or how to make their favorite meals from the chef, or however it may be. So it's still serving our guests, but it's just a different vehicle for how we do it, because we can't at the moment obviously invite people in to dine in our what is essentially like our living rooms. Our restaurants are like our homes. Yeah. And we can't do that at the moment, but it's figuring out, okay, well, our guests still love what we do. How do we just plan out and maximize how we deliver it to them? So that's been the real challenge. But I think for a lot of people, it's getting through the mindset of going, everything's doom and gloom. And I'm repeatedly saying, listen, no one's coming to save you. We have to save ourselves. Let's figure out a plan. And that's what, I know a lot of people talking about some, people outside of hospitality, a lot of self-employed people have struggled, and a lot of people that are directors of limited companies have struggled. And, there's lots of people out there that have been in a panic over, what the economy is going to do to their business. And the reality is, we all have to find a way. We all have to figure it out. We all have to go, okay, the world has shifted. But there's still as many people out there that want what we do. We just have to figure out a different way of giving it to them. So I think it's actually not just for hospitality businesses. I think this is a lesson for everyone in business.
Totally.
No one is coming to save you. Don't depend on the chancellor writing you a blank check. There are options out there to make your business slightly easier for the next few years. But we're all going to have to shift what we do and how we do it. I mean, my business was heavily built on face-to-face conversations and being in the restaurant or in the hotel or, in the nightclub, telling people this works for the guest, this doesn't work for the guest. And that has to change. And, I've really built out for my business over the last few weeks on how to work with them on building the strategy and building the kind of the different streams of revenue and building out how can we make sales and how can we provide a service. And it's all a challenge, but I've always been one of those people that if you throw me a challenge, I'm going to, jump to it. I love a challenge. It's probably why I work in hospitality, because the challenges are absolutely endless.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know about you, probably seen it A, with your clients, but B, just from your own personal experience. When we first kind of had the lockdown, I saw immediately some local bars, restaurants, even national chains immediately jumping and changing and sort of evolving what they do. And some of them now you see kind of pulling back a little bit from that. And some of those that took a bit of time, certainly I've noticed locally, some that took a bit of time and just closed for a month, and now starting to sort of open up with takeaway offerings and different things like that. But I do wonder, from own personal experience, because, a lot of people are just opening up with a takeaway option, go and queue outside to get a coffee. And I do wonder, after the novelty's worn off with that, how much people will actually want to just go and queue in the street for a cup of coffee. And I know that those businesses are just trying to find a way. But I think what you're saying about how do you make that a different product is so right. And as you say, it's not just unique to hospitality. We've all got to do that.
I think anyone who writes their rules and sets them out in stone and says, this is what we do and this is how we do it, is destined for failure. We have to be writing what we do and how we do it in pencil and getting ready to rub it out and go again. We have to be nimble. We have to think on our feet, and we have to roll with the punches. We have to understand that with every time that a government minister stands at that podium, life could be different. What we have to spend or the ways in which we get to spend it is going to be different. So anyone saying, writing their website and saying, right, that's it, that's done for the next 12 months is absolutely fighting a losing battle, because the world that we live in 12 months ago has changed to the one that's going to be here in 12 months. This is an evolving situation, but actually to take COVID-19, coronavirus, international pandemic out of this situation anyway, the world was always evolving. The world was always changing, and the way in which we communicate with one another. My dad's in his late 70s, and we've been talking on FaceTime for years. He's had an iPhone. They keep saying on the news, no one over the age of 70 has an iPhone. And I'm saying my dad is not a techie person, but he's had one for years. So
have they said that? No one over 70?
Yeah, because they're worried about the tracing app that, no one over the age of 70 is going to be able to take part. And I'm like, that's just not true. We mustn't tell ourselves that, people that were 80 years old 20 years ago are not the 80-year-olds that we have today.
Yeah, totally.
We are in an evolving society. Our businesses are evolving. How we live our lives is evolving. 20 years ago, if you had a personal training session, it was with someone stood next to you telling you how to do a press up. Nowadays, plenty of times we have a personal training session on Zoom or via a Facebook group or via an app. Maybe not even a human telling us what to do. Maybe it's a robot telling us what to do and how.
Yeah.
And I just think anyone who thinks that they're going to write a business plan and they're going to roll it out and then this is what we do and how we do it, I just think we've got to be better than that. Write in pencil, don't write in permanent marker.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And I think that's got to be the top tip for everybody. I mean, as you have, I know, I've taken the opportunity over the last few weeks to really make some decisions, but they're not going to be like the same decision that's going to happen in 6 months' time, because we don't know what's going to happen. But I think you're totally right that, you've just got to be thinking about different things all the time. And I hate to use the term growth mindset, because it's always a bit sort of like cliche and one of those words that it's just like, what is she talking about? But I really think that it's at this time that you can't afford to be closed about things. You've got to think every single thing as an opportunity.
Yeah. It's I think the way I kind of look at it is look at the business and, you know, life and all that sort of thing as a mixture of art and science. You know, we can take a good stab of figuring it out how it's going to be. I can take a good stab in the dark and say, you know, lockdown is going to be kind of done by the 1st of September. You know, hospitality businesses will be open with a 50% capacity, you know, kind of mid-August. You know, I can make these predictions as you know, with a bit of science, but there's a lot of art woven into it. And there's, you know, we have to figure it out as it goes along. And what I've kind of said to my clients and people that I've spoken to in business is, if you have, you know, at least 3 eventualities for what could roll out, then you're in a stronger place than if you had none. And there's lots of people waking up every day going, wonder what's going to happen today, wonder what the government are going to tell me today, and not really. And they're sitting in the passenger seat. And what I'm saying to business owners is, get out of the passenger seat, get into the driving seat, and get the map out and go, okay, if I go this way, this is what's going to happen. This is where I'm going to end up. And if I go this way, maybe that's going to happen. And if you have 3 different routes for how you're going to get somewhere, then you're in a better place than if you stand there and hope that the car's going to drive itself, because you know, that's just a recipe for disaster. And so I'm really kind of banging the drum of telling people, because I feel like some of us have been sat in the passenger seat and wanting someone else to take us there. Someone's going to take us to success. You know, we're going to run a Facebook ad campaign and my business is going to be saved. Just not going to happen. Like, we need to have 3 different eventualities minimum. You know, what happens if we have a second wave, for example, and, you know, we're back into lockdown by August the 1st? You know, that's a real option. You know, if you see how many people are on the street today, and we're currently supposed to be in lockdown, like you say, the parks are packed, the beaches are packed. You know, if we had a second wave, what does that mean for our business? You know, what would we do if we had to, you know, put the closed sign up again? You know, what plans are we making for, you know, doing the Christmas season? So going back to hospitality businesses, you know, a huge part of our income is for what we sell over from, you know, kind of November the 1st to January the 1st. Yeah. If that happens in lockdown, and, you know, and your guests are not able to come and spend their money and drink your drinks and eat your meals, what does that look like for your business? Now, I'm not saying that your business is going to fail, but I'm telling you, if you don't figure it out now and have a bit of a plan, you're going to be in a really tough spot. Hopefully the world gets back to normal, and, you know, all of these conversations are going to seem so alien and so ridiculous, but we just don't know at the moment. So I'm very much of a person to go, we don't have all the answers. I tell all my clients, listen, I don't have all the answers. I'll have a good guess, but we can figure out a few eventualities. So no matter what happens, we've got a plan.
Yeah. And I think the other important thing, and it goes back to the first comment you made about developing products for customers rather than trying to get customers to fit your products. It goes back to what the customers are going to want, because, you know, people that I've been speaking to, both friends and business colleagues, you know, they're all sort of saying, well, you know, even if things do open, I'm not sure I want to go. I'm not going to go to the cinema. I'm not, because how are they going to do that? They're going to have to do every other road. I'm not sure I want to go in a restaurant. I definitely don't want to go in a crowded bar. Yeah. And so there's one side with which, you know, the government can say, yes, things are open now or whatever, and businesses can plan for that. But I think you've got to be really mindful, again, of putting yourself in the shoes of the customer. And what do they want? Yeah. But also, what do they want to hear? And this is where it comes back to your messaging and really being, you know, you can't. Gone are the days where you can just say, we're the best coffee shop in town. You can't say that, right? You've got to be allaying the fears. You've got to appeal to emotion.
Well, absolutely. The interesting thing is about this is one thing that hospitality do really well, because as much as the public now have this boogeyman of coronavirus, we've dealt with boogeymen in our industry for years. We've had salmonella, we've had E. coli, any kind of food poisoning, any kind of bacteria, any kind of thing. We've lived with these boogeymen for years. and we've learned how to deal with them. So from that side of things, from the safety side of things, actually internally as great business owners, we have 5 stars as our health and hygiene rating. We have fantastic cleaning procedures in place.
Yeah.
Our chefs are fully equipped with excellent knowledge on how to preserve food, keep food, cook food, serve food. And, you know, hygiene has always been, for great businesses, hygiene has always been of the utmost importance. So actually, from that side of things, internally, I don't think there's a problem. The issue is that we have to now talk about it. We've never screamed and shouted about, don't worry, we haven't got salmonella here, or don't worry, E. coli has never, come across our door. We've never had to kind of talk about it before, but I think there is going to be a certain amount of, a promise, a promise from our brand to your family saying, we do take things seriously. We've always had 5 stars. We've always had excellent hygiene. These are the additional steps that we're taking. These are the additional trainings that we've had. We've got the antibacterial gloves. We've got antibacterial wipes. We've got a timer that goes off every 20 minutes. So we do a full clean down. Now, all of those things have always happened, and we've always had clean kitchens, but I guess now it's opening up that conversation to say, if you need reassurance, let me reassure you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that needs to be kind of like personal, and that needs to be the sort of thing that possibly businesses need to think about in a more one-to-one approach. And I don't mean they've got to call customers individually and reassure them, but they've got to think about different ways of doing it. They've got to think about recording a video from the owner, doing exactly what we're doing now, having a video. They've got to use things like Messenger and chatbot, that if you've got a booking, you can send people those messages saying, don't worry, this is what's happening, just keeping that regular drip of conversation. And it's interesting you should say about hospitality businesses. It's the same for the beauty industry.
Right.
Because they've always had to disinfect all their equipment and all these things. And yet, interestingly, this week I've seen on Facebook 2 people I know locally who are beauty therapists. They're going through additional training with people like Dermalogica and brands, and they're proving again that they clean their stuff and all of those things. I mean, you go past a nail bar and they've always worn nail masks, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really interesting that the industries that are getting most kind of focus, as in you've got to be making sure you're hygienic. You're right. They're the ones that always have been.
That doesn't intimidate us.
Yeah.
We've always got it.
It comes down to the psychology of the customers, doesn't it? And that's where I think that the businesses have maybe got to spend a bit of time thinking about how they appeal to that.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely right. And I think things like the 5-star rating that you see on the front doors of hopefully the cafes and the coffee shops and all that sort of thing that you go to. I think, a government-led scheme with coronavirus or COVID-19 at the centre, where you've got the safety officers going out, having conversations with business owners, and then making that establishment a approved or certified. I think that would help. I think that is actually something that the government could do, because, as I say, as a boogeyman, we're not scared of it. We know what we're doing. But I think as a communication piece to the public, I actually think that would be really helpful, because I think it gives opportunity for the big boys, McDonald's and Wagamamas and all these sort of things, to be on an even keel, with small independents. They have to follow the same rules as small independents do. And I think to have a certified, because they can spend millions on campaigns to tell everyone how safe they are. Small businesses can't. So I think actually one thing the government could do, and I'm going to send an email to my local MP after we finish this, because I just had this idea.
Maybe I'll do the same.
Yeah, I literally just had this idea. But actually having a nationally recognised kind of stamp of approval saying we've had this conversation, they are doing the right things, then that's actually quite powerful. And I'm all for levelling, small businesses with big businesses. I'm not anti-big business at all. Some of my clients are huge national companies, but I would have to say, I'm a huge advocate of small businesses as well. There's no reason why the big boys should get to look like they're safe and the small people can't. I think that I'm all for levelling that field and having that ability for the public to know and feel safe in anyone's business that's doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I think that is important, because I do think that there's, and I know we've spoken about this separately, there is, I feel, much more willingness to support smaller businesses. I mean, where I live, we've got a thriving independent hospitality scene. Independent businesses. And I know obviously it is a struggle, but I think that is a really good point, because people really want to support those small businesses now.
But if they're going out for lunch with their grandparents, they don't want to feel stressed through every minute of it. And I absolutely get that.
Exactly.
If you've got vulnerable people in your family, if you've got, asthmatic children, whatever it might be, you want to go out and have make amazing memories and have an amazing experience. And you're never going to do that if every 5 seconds you're paranoid about, who's cooking your food, or have they washed their hands, or whatever it might be. I'm absolutely passionate about, what we do as hospitality businesses needs to come alive again. We are the people that make 80th birthday parties special, because we bring everyone together. We house first dates where people meet for the first time and fall in love. Kids' birthday parties, family anniversaries, whatever it might be. Those are some of my biggest highlights, and they've all happened under the roof of hospitality businesses. So what we do, what we provide the public, what we do for our guests is actually so important. It's what we live for. It's what we thrive for. The amount of people that go through Monday to Friday looking forward to Friday night, when they can get together with their most favorite people and enjoy great conversation and great laughs over a pint or two. That's what we as hospitality business owners get to do. What the service that we provide to people really matters. And so as much as it's going to be a bumpy ride over the next few months and years, we have to keep that at the heart and soul of why we get up in the morning. And that's, we provide a really important service to the public and to our guests. And we have to keep that as the focus, and, not be afraid, not be, concerned that we're not going to have a business. We've just got to roll with, building a business that the world can handle right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I talk to clients about a lot is on their website, they absolutely must have. I mean, even if you don't call it an FAQ, you must answer the questions up front that your clients have. Fundamentally, and get all those questions that could become objections out the way. Just be clear. Just answer all the questions. So if someone's got a question like, what are you doing? Just be open. Don't try and hide anything. And this is the same for every single business. Now, obviously, hospitality businesses will probably may have to do even more of that. But it's the same as if you're in an office, right?
Absolutely.
And, it's like someone says to you, "Can you come for a meeting?" And you're like, well, I don't know when the last time was that they actually disinfected the boardroom table. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's all things like that. So I think it's got to come down to over communicate, but do it in a way that is easily accessible for people. You can just direct them to a page on your website. Don't be shy about putting it out there, and just sort of say, answer the questions up front that your clients have, and that will remove so many objections.
Yeah, my grandfather used to always say, when there's an elephant in the room, bring it right to the centre and introduce it to everyone. So I guess that's what it's saying, that there is this massive elephant in the room. And I get that people are scared. I absolutely understand that. Yeah. And I get that they're not even scared for themselves. Quite often they're scared for their friends and family and, in their life. And I absolutely get that. But I think it's right. I think, understand that is the issue, and bring it to the forefront and introduce it to everyone and put everyone's mind at rest. I wrote a book with the co-founder of one of my businesses, and it's called Sales Through Service, and it was scheduled to come out about a month ago, but obviously with the global pandemic that unleashed itself, releasing a book about hospitality and how to sell and serve to your customers just didn't feel like the right time to do it.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because the book was completely finished and it's ready to go. But we decided that, let's not release it now because it's just not the right time. Our clients are not in that headspace to go, how can we serve our customers better at the table, which is what it's all about. So there was an elephant in the room with regards to the book, and I said, right, we're going to have to write a different introduction, and that's what we did. So we wrote, you know, 1,000-word kind of, it was like a pre-introduction to the introduction, where we basically said this book was ready to go, and then the pandemic happened, and we questioned ourselves whether what we do and how we do it, was it still relevant to the world that is going to come out at the end of it? We messaged a few clients, a few customers, and a few kind of real high industry people that we really respect, and said, you know, we've written this book and it covers these areas and it trains your staff to become sales professionals. Is this still relevant? Is this still something that you need? And the results we got back, the feedback we got back, was absolutely unanimous, with everyone saying this book was essential before and now it's an absolute must. Like when we open those doors, if our people aren't being sales professionals, if they're not doing a great job of being ambassadors for our business, then we're not going to survive anyway. So, so it was really interesting to kind of have that reassurance from people saying, no, we definitely need sales professionals in our business now more than ever. So the book's currently on ice. I think it's going to come out maybe kind of in the autumn time, when probably just before hospitality businesses are kind of scheduled to reopen again. But it's exactly that. We had to kind of come out and say, we know that this has happened, and we've wrestled with, is this message still relevant? And, you know, throughout the book, we talk about the different struggles of having a hospitality business. Of course, we don't obviously mention COVID-19 because it didn't exist when we first wrote the book. But bringing that to the forefront and you know, having those issues addressed and those concerns addressed, actually, it makes complete sense. So I think for any business, if you haven't got a reopening or a relaunch or a kind of rebranding strategy for how we're going to be in this new world, then I think that's probably number one on the to-do list. Any
business, you're right.
Any business. And I think, you know, for me, what I talk to my clients about is, you know, your restaurant reimagined, and I've really kind of wanted to dive deep into that with my clients to go, okay, so if people can't sit down, what does that look like? If we have to remove half the tables and chairs, what does that look like? You know, if we can only do takeaway for the next 24 months, okay, what does that look like? So it's your restaurant reimagined. How can we create a new business from the existing one? How can we make this bigger and better? Because for a lot of people, and not necessarily my clients, because they're the people that have raised their hand and said we need help, but I guess it's more for other people that are trying to fight through this on their own, is to turn around and say there is help out there. You can get guidance, speak to someone, speak to a coach, get involved in a mastermind, even just get involved in a Facebook group that helps small businesses. You know, raise your hand and say, you know, I need guidance, because if we don't unpack and rebuild your business, it will be more of a struggle than it ever has been. And for many people, it was a struggle to begin with. Like I said, that for many, they were drowning in the pool, and now other people are stealing the life raft. So it's even it's even harder now. But if we don't take this opportunity as a positive, and I know that lots of people have done, and lots of people are putting their heads in the sand, so I guess I'm speaking to them that are doing this. But if you're not unpacking what you do and then rebuilding a business that really sets you on fire and really gets you excited and amped, then, you know, what's it all for? You know, this is a great opportunity. And I know that this obviously has been a tragic time, and I'm not trying to say that it hasn't been. It's been incredibly tough for a lot of people. But this is a great opportunity to go, okay, where are we going and how are we going to get there? And really, you know, recalibrate your business, rework what it is you do, refigure out what's going to make you excited. You know, is the Sunday service non-profitable? You know, are the really premium wines, are they breaking, you know, your bank account every month because you can't really afford to have them on your shelves? You know, really question everything it is that you've got whilst you've got the time. And, you know, let's work together and rebuild a business that really matters, you know, not just 1 year from now, but a decade from now.
Well, that, I think, is probably a really good place to stop, because it's like Joy's final rallying cry to hospitality businesses, but also to anyone. But
yeah, I do get really passionate. I do get really passionate about it. So apologies if I got on my soapbox then.
No, I knew that you would be. So I was just like, when I texted you yesterday and said, hey, do you want to do a podcast? And you're like, yes. I was like, oh, good. This is going to be exciting. So,
So I absolutely think, don't feel alone. Ask for help, get around great people. Don't get around people that, are going to bring you down. Get around people that are going to lift you up and, tackle the challenge. Go for it. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think so many people today struggle feeling like they have to be the person that knows it all and they have to be, the macho business owner. Do you know what? Speak to someone who doesn't really know you. Reach out to someone who isn't going to judge you for asking for help. Absolutely. But keep pushing forward because, it's a new world ahead of us and we're heading towards it fast. So we might as well embrace it.
Well, wow, wasn't that a great chat with Joy? We could actually have carried on talking for hours. And actually, when I stopped the recording, we did talk for at least another half hour. So hopefully, not just hospitality businesses, but other businesses got some ideas there about the types of things that you need to be thinking about right now. I really love Joy's simple explanation about being in the driver's seat and not being in the passenger seat. And the other idea about making sure that you've got a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. So if you take anything away from this episode, it's just that. Please do think about how you can approach your business over the coming months. And hopefully you enjoyed that episode and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Tune in next week where we'll have more inspirational stories talking about moving your business beyond what it is and moving it more towards what you're in business for, what's important, and doing good and changing the way things should be done.